Good morning, good evening, friends. Welcome to my channel, Ek Kitab Se Ek Moti, which in English means a pearl or gem from one book. Today, I'm going to read out a few paragraphs from the book, Advice to the Young and Moral Catechism, written by Noah Webster. Before I proceed, let me just briefly talk about who Noah Webster was and what moral catechism means. Noah Webster was a lexicographer, a famous lexicographer of America. He was the one who came up with the American Dictionary of the English Language. His 1828 edition of that book is very popular even now. So if you like reading the works of Shakespeare or Milton, or you like reading the KJV, the authorized version of the Bible, and if you come across words that seem a bit difficult to understand, or if they are old-fashioned, you can just look them up in this dictionary and usually you'll find them. And Noah Webster came up with all these new spellings, for example, COLOR for color. So he tried to come up with spellings that made the American language unique or distinct from the British language. Let's look at what catechism means in this. So catechism is a series of questions that clarifies a subject. For example, usually you have catechism for religious instruction or moral instruction, but the series of questions can relate to any subject, so that when someone goes through these questions and the answers, one is able to have a good grasp of the subject concerned. Now let me proceed to the paragraphs. I think there are 5 paragraphs that I'm going to read from this. So the paragraphs are numbered, so I'm just going to read from maybe 2 pages, and then I'll briefly discuss the concept. My young friends, the first years of your life are to be employed in learning those things which are to make you good citizens, useful members of society, and candidates for a happy state in another world. Among the first things you are to learn are your duties to your parents. These duties are commanded by God and are necessary to your happiness in this life. The commands of God are honor thy father and thy mother. Remember, this is KJV, authorized version English. Children, obey your parents in all things. These commands are binding on all children. They cannot be neglected without sin. Whatever God has commanded us to do, we must perform without calling in question the propriety of the command. Now I'm going to read the second paragraph. But the reasonableness of this command to obey parents is clear and easily understood by children, even when quite young. Parents are their natural guardians of their children. Parents are the natural guardians of their children. It is their duty to feed, clothe, protect, and educate them. And for these purposes, it is proper and necessary that parents should have authority to direct their actions. Parents, therefore, are bound by duty and by right to govern their children. But the exercise of this authority is to be regulated by affection. So one thing is practicing authority, because we are parents, is important, but also it's important to make sure that it's affectionate and it's not extremely severe, so that it doesn't discourage or dishearten children. Parents have implanted in them a tender love for their offspring, which induces them to exercise authority over them with kindness. It is proper that parents should, it's the third paragraph, it is proper that parents should be entrusted with the instruction of children, because children have everything to learn, and parents are older and have gained a knowledge of what their children want to know. Parents have learned what is right and what is wrong, what is duty and what is sin, what is useful and what is hurtful to children and to men. And as children pass the first years of their life with their parents, they may be continually learning from their parents what is necessary or useful in the concerns of life. It is not only proper that children should obey their parents, fourth paragraph. It is not only proper that children should obey their parents, but their obedience should be prompt and cheerful. A slow, reluctant obedience, and that which is accompanied with murmurings, is not acceptable to parents nor to God. A sense of duty should make a child free and ready to comply with a parent's command, and this will always be the case where the child entertains a due respect for his parents. Love and respect render obedience easy and cheerful, and a willing obedience increases the confidence of parents in their children. and strengthens their attachment to them. But a cold and unwilling obedience with a murmuring disposition alienates affection and inclines a parent to rigor and severity in the exercise of his authority. Hence, it is a primary duty of children, and as much their interest as it is their duty, to honor their father and their mother. This honor not only forbids the child to disobey his parents, but it forbids all rudeness and ill manners towards them. Children should manifest their respect for their parents in all their actions. They should be modest and respectful in their company, never interrupting them in conversation, nor boldly contradicting them. They should address them as superiors and yield to their opinions and admonitions. This subordination of children to their parents as the foundation of peace in families contributes to foster those kindly dispositions both in parents and children, which are the sources of domestic happiness and which extend their influence to all social relations in subsequent periods of life. So, let me now briefly discuss these points as I have understood them. So it's my interpretation. It need not be your interpretation. So you may have disagreements with me. That's fine. But my role here is to just bring you these gems and just to discuss my points of view. And you can take what suits your condition or your disposition or your situation, and reject what doesn't apply. That's why I started my first video with an explanation or a description of Tulsi Das's famous couplet, which is Jad Chetan Gurdosh Mai Vishwakina Kartar Santahan Sagunagaha Hipaya Pariharivari Vikar, which means, roughly translated, it means this world has been created as a mixture of good and evil. So the good man, what he does is he extracts the good out of it and leaves out the bad. There is a kind of belief among the Hindus that the swan has this ability of separating the milk from the water. So the swan drinks the milk and leaves out the water or discards the water. Similarly, a good man extracts the good from the world and discards or rejects the evil. So what you find in my talks relevant or good, you take it. What you find irrelevant or bad or according to your situation it's irrational or something not to be accepted, just reject it. So that's how we learn from others, and that's how we have a proper attitude towards the views of others, so that we are always looking for what's good in what someone says, and we just take that good thing and apply it to our lives. Now, the first thing that the author mentions is that when we are young, it is our duty to learn the things that will make us good citizens of our country and will make us good members of our family, good members of our nation, and also we need to learn things that will make us a good candidate for the life hereafter. So these are the basic things that have been at the basis of the civilizations, different civilizations. The family is at the basis of civilization. So it is very important for children to honor their parents, honor their father and mother. Here are some of the reasons. So parents are the guardians of children. They educate them, feed them, clothe them, and they are responsible for raising children who would become good citizens of the country and who are going to be the future inheritors of the nation or the world. So we need to pass on to children the things we have learned, the things we feel are good for them, the things we feel are bad for them. So it's our responsibility to pass that knowledge and understanding to them. One of the things that parents should pass on to their children is obedience, because obedience is at the basis of application of certain things that cannot be learnt by experience at a young age. So children cannot experience certain things to decide whether something is good or bad for them. For example, if a child is unwilling to go to school, that's because lack of experience. The child doesn't know the value of education. That's why parents command them to go to school. So the child should willingly go to school, although he or she may have a feeling that they don't like going to school, but that's not what the parents expect from them. They should go to school because parents know better. So that's why it's so important for children to be obedient. And all the religious scriptures, whether the Bible, the Quran, or the Ramcharitmanas, all these talk about respect for parents, honoring them, and especially obeying their commands. For example, Tulsidas says in his Ramcharitmanas that without thinking whether what your parents say is proper or improper, appropriate or inappropriate, right or wrong, just do what they say. The Quran also says that you need to obey your parents, and the Bible says that again and again, especially in the book of Proverbs, which was written mainly by Solomon, one of the wisest men in the world during his time. So wisdom also demands that children obey their parents and carry out their commands and do what their parents ask them to do. And how should children obey their parents? They should do it cheerfully. They should not murmur, they should not complain, because what parents ask them to do is for their good. Whether they know it is for their good or not doesn't matter. They just need to carry out the command. So for example, if the parent asks them, that is, if the father or the mother asks his or her child to bring them a glass of water, they should immediately carry out that command. They should not question whether, or they should not come up with excuses or be rude and say that they can't do it. So, because what happens is just a small violation of the command, or a small act of disobedience can become a big habit later on. So it's better to teach children that they should carry out what their parents say without questioning. Just do it. I'll come to it in a minute. Come to why that's come to this thing. Why it's important why it's important for children to obey their parents' commands. In a moment, I'll come to that topic. But before that, let me mention a few more points. So, one thing is, parents too should, request or command their children to do things in a cheerful or in a polite way, so that there is not too much rudeness in what they say, so that it doesn't discourage or dishearten children. So there should be affection as well in the way parents command their children. And a few points about why it's important for children to carry out the commands of their children, why it's important for children to be obedient. One is that when they become parents, they would expect the same. They won't like their children, disobeying them. That's something that we can learn from experience. So, for example, now as a father, I expect my children to do what I ask them to do, because I know that if they do that, it will be beneficial for them later on, so that they learn, how to raise their own children, so that they too follow their commands and requests and do what they say. And one more thing is, I have noticed that, again, I'm not sure whether I can generalize, but some families without parental authority disintegrate. For example, if children get into the habit of disobeying their parents, that can be continued until their mature years, when they become adults, and that can disintegrate the family. It is very important to keep the family together by making sure that parental authority is not questioned. When parental authority is questioned in a family, usually there is no role model for the children to look up to. So I believe, again, I might be mistaken in this, but I believe that children should consider their father and their mother their role models. They should look up to them. And if there is no authority in it, when I say authority, I say authority with affection. It's not kind of dictatorial authority or authority of a rude kind, but they should consider their parents their role models, and they should look up to them. And that happens only when they see the excellent behavior of parents as well. So it's important for parents, I'm not sure whether I'm digressing, but let me mention this. It's important for children to observe the good behavior of parents. That it's very important that when parents ask their children or command the children not to lie, that parents also don't lie, although it's very difficult to carry out in practice. But parents too should practice what they preach, so that children don't have this conflict in their minds. Because if we ask them to do certain things they should do, and when they see that we don't do those things in our lives, they might get this conflict. But whether the parent does it or not, whether the father does what he says or not, children should do what their father asks them to do, because that's extremely important. Because sometimes what happens is, it's not necessary that the person who says a good thing need always to carry it out. So for example, we have had great archers teaching archery, who may not have won medals themselves, but they could make others get medals, because parents too learn from their mistakes in life. So for example, if the parents say that the time of schooling is for education primarily and not for other things, primary focus of children should be study, that's because the parent might have not done that in his or her life. And so knowing from experience the negative consequence of those bad decisions, the parents can guide their children. And usually I have noticed that children who obey their parents rarely go astray. They might not know why it's important to obey their parents during that time. They might think that what their parents expect from them is unreasonable, but they'll come to know the wisdom of their advice later. That's why. Let me conclude now. I think the basic thing is all religious scriptures talk about this. So I'm just recapitulating what I said. Maybe there was a bit of rambling here and there, but now let me recapitulate. So the important thing is that children should honor their parents. They should obey them. They should obey them cheerfully. One day they are going to become parents, and when their children don't obey them, they are going to feel the sting, of the fact that they themselves did not obey their parents. And when they see the negative results of children not obeying them, they'll themselves feel guilty, and they'll kind of relive their lives so that they could have done things in a different way by obeying their parents. So it's extremely important. And whether you read the Quran or the Bible or the Ramcharitmanas or the Mahabharata or the Ramayana, you'll see the benefit of obeying your parents. I think I've covered most of the points that I wanted to cover. So I would recommend this book for children. Again, as I said, many of these books, contain a few things that just are not applicable during these times, and some of these things apply only to unique people, unique situations, but there are many things that are applicable to our situation today. Remember, this was written hundreds of years ago, but the fundamentals are still valid, and this line is extremely important in this, which is this: the commands of God are, honor thy father and thy mother. Children, obey your parents in all things. Thanks for watching this video.